Labor Day special. We got this 2012 Ford Fusion in for random stalling. No codes at all. No codes. And then one time, pulled up a cam code. What was that cam code? Cam circuit code. I'll dig it out, put it on the screen. Popped off the cam sensor. There was metallic paste on it and stuff. Cleaned it off, put it back in. And at that point, when it pulled up the code, it had stalled out, reverse to drive, and would not start up again with just the cam code. Two complaints which she brought it over is smells bad. Well, your valve cover's dripping oil on your exhaust. And stalling, we got a lot of construction out here. It's like a 3-year project on the highway. So it would just stall when you would go from reverse to drive, or if you're sitting in construction, then you go to take off, stop signs, stop lights, construction, it would stall. You have to start it back up, and then you could go. Go through live data and everything on your scanner. Everything looks good, mass airflow, throttle body up, pedal position sensor, throttle position sensor, like everything that could cause this stalling problem, everything looks good. And you know it's a funny situation when it only does it from reverse to drive or stop and go construction. That's weird. And it has spark anytime you test it. Wait, that's one thing I could have did while it wasn't starting, was test for spark. Because if the crank sensor's off, it won't give spark. It cuts off spark. Let's see what we can find. Valve cover's been leaking for a while. We got some sludge buildup right here on this corner of the exhaust manifold. It's been running right off of this corner, so we're changing the valve cover. And look at the timing chain. It's pretty sloppy. Do a little cleaning while we're in here. Still not the issue. We keep digging further. Bingo, we found the problem right here, guys. We have a crankshaft sensor right here, and it has been in the past torn out of its loom. You can see right there, it's supposed to sit uptight there. But if I spin this guy around, right there, we have worn out wires right there. And sure enough, that will cause a instant stalling situation, and oftentimes will not cause a code because it's just shutting off right away. So we got some wires shorting right to ground just every once in a while on the tulip of the inside CV axle. That's going to be our diag. So we'll cut this sheathing back, unplug the sensor, repair this small section that's damaged, and then put it all back together. So that's a real funny situation. Anytime you're driving, that CV axle is going to spin and create kind of like a wind force and keep that wire off of the CV axle. And it's got those notches cut into it. So if you stop in a certain position, or most positions, you won't be short to ground on your crank sensor, and you'll be just fine. But if you stop just right and there's enough pressure on those wires to the CV axle, then boom, you're going to stall. So you come to a stop at construction. That was our main concern, was stops at construction with all the construction we have around here. So as you start to slowly take off, that CV axle is going to turn around and touch the crank sensor. And as soon as it touches it enough, so like I said, not every time, just every once in a while, then doing it more frequently, then it stops doing it altogether. So when hit a bump, shift the car, motor mounts move a little bit. You never know when that wire is going to touch the CV axle. And if it does and touches it with enough pressure to short to ground it, boom, motor's going to stall with no codes popping up. So that's a pretty cool situation. Yeah, if you got instant stalling, randomness. I ran into this once before on a Ford Escape where somehow the wiring harness had got chafed, and it runs tight and it's protected. So I just 250,000 miles just rubbing over the years, and then boom, it was shorting out on the engine block. And it was just every once in a while. And I said to the guy, he was confused, and like, he's a DIYer, who's pretty decent. I was like, what about the crankshaft sensor? Like, check your wiring. There might be just a small break or something. And he called me up later the next day and was like, sure enough, Carl, it was, I found the problem. There was a rubbed out section of the wire in the crank sensor, and that'll do it. This was just a crazy situation because the combined elements of the wind force that the centrifugal force of the CV axle makes, the shape of it, the way the wire wasn't completely hanging, like pressing against the CV axle, but it was touching. So it's just random stalling with no codes. Figured it out.